Welcome back to Dan Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Army of One, released in 2020. The movie opens on two police officers carefully watching a nearby house, preparing for a raid. The officers break into the apartment, but are ambushed and killed by an armed assailant in a mask. However, one of the officers, Dylan Baker, manages to survive. Later on, Dylan Baker and his wife Brenner are heading into the woods on a camping trip. As Brenner drives, she is taunted by Butch, a cartel member in another vehicle, but she dismisses him. Butch drives away, and Brenner continues on her trip. Soon after, they stop at a country cafe for lunch, unaware that the cafe belongs to the cartel. Brenner looks at the menu while Dylan heads to the bathroom, but suddenly, Butch and his thugs burst into the cafe. He spots Brenner and approaches her. When Brenner makes fun of his crew, Butch threatens her. When Dylan returns, he asks Butch to leave his wife alone. He refuses and begins picking a fight with Dylan instead. Butch's mother, called Mama, intervenes and he backs off. She apologizes to the couple for her son's reckless behavior. Mama tells them to order anything they want on Butch's tab, so Brenner orders dessert with her lunch, even though Dylan asks her not to, as he does not want to stir up trouble between them. But Mama insists, so they place their orders. After they finish their meal, they leave and continue their drive to the country. When they arrive at the campsite, they set up camp and go out sightseeing. One of the other campers warns the couple about the unfriendly locals. Brenner thanks her and they set out on their hike. Suddenly, rain starts falling and the pair find shelter in a house in the woods. This house also belongs to the cartel, but the couple is unaware. Dylan tells Brenner that they should leave, but she insists that they will be warmer and better off in the house. While the couple makes out and waits for the rain to stop, the cartel is attending church. When the rain stops, Dylan tells Brenner they should leave before the owner of the house returns. But Brenner doesn't listen and begins to snoop around the house. But when she finds a room full of guns, Dylan becomes afraid and urges them to leave. Meanwhile, Mama sends one of her men down to the house where he finds the couple. He attacks them and they are severely injured. Later, Butch arrives with the rest of the cartel and Dylan is brutally tortured. When the cartel discover Dylan is a police officer, the cartel becomes worried as they initially suspected they were just spies. They find their campsite and throw away their gear before returning to the house and shooting the couple. He then asks his men to dispose of their bodies in a pit, believing them to be dead. However, Brenner is still alive. She experiences a flashback of her time as a ranger before waking up and crawling out of the pit. Brenner regrets her actions and wishes she had listened to Dylan, but it is too late. She begins to cry and apologize as she buries his body. She decides to stay there until morning to avoid being seen by the cartel. The next day, Brenner finds her way back to their campsite where she finds an axe and swears revenge on the cartel for Dylan's death. She uses the axe to cut down tree branches and make spears. Meanwhile, the cartel members are having breakfast. When Butch joins them, he proceeds to harass the maids. He picks on Emily, one of the maids he occasionally has sex with, until Mama arrives and puts a stop to it. Meanwhile, Brenner has armed herself and prepares to attack the cartel's home. When Butch and the rest of his men go to work, they leave a guard to watch over the house. Brenner soon after makes her way back to the cartel house, but when she looks around, she doesn't find anyone. Brenner then finds the guard and confronts him. While he is shocked that she is still alive, she attacks him with a wooden spear and stabs him to death. Then, Brenner breaks into the house. Brenner searches the house for the rest of the cartel, but finds no one else, so she returns to the campsite to wait for them. Later, Brenner spots two cartel members in the woods and attacks them. She stabs one to death while she takes the other one hostage, demanding he take her to the rest of his gang. She hangs him from a tree to threaten him, but he won't give up his gang members. Brenner cuts him loose and burns down one of their storage houses. But she secretly follows the man she set loose to use him as bait to find everyone else. The cartel man walks back to the house where Butch finds him. The man warns them that Brenner is still alive and out for their blood. Butch is surprised to hear that she is alive and becomes furious. Brenner spots Butch and the wounded man and quietly follows them. He drives back to the house, not realizing that Brenner is hiding under his truck. Brenner carefully watches them and plans her attack. Later, Butch is scolded by Mama, who orders him to find Brenner and finish the job. When she orders another cartel member, Lawrence, to find information about Brenner, he discovers she is a high-ranking retired First Ranger. Mama is impressed by this woman and worried they might be in danger if she is not stopped. While the town sheriff, Sheriff Hobbs, is out hunting, he discovers the body of the dead cartel man. He calls for backup and they decide to question Mama since she owns the land. Meanwhile, Brenner continues to hide while making more weapons. When Sheriff Hobbs questions Mama, she lies that the cartel member, Earl, had committed suicide. The sheriff doesn't believe her, but she insists that her men just found him dead on the spot. The sheriff leaves unconvinced, telling her to pick up the body in the morning. That night, the cartel mourns Earl and swears vengeance on Brenner. As they fall asleep while singing and paying their last respects to Earl, Brenner attacks Butch in the barn, breaking his arm and slitting his throat. Brenner happily watches his life fade away, knowing she has gotten revenge for her husband. She hides his body and falls asleep in the barn. When she wakes up the next day, she watches one of the cartel lock up a maid. Brenner also discovers that the rest of the clan is still asleep. Brenner approaches the maid and learns that the other maids have been locked up too. She sets them free and promises to protect them. But since one of the maids is afraid the cartel will come after them if they escape, she screams to wake up the sleeping cartel members. They come outside and start shooting at Brenner as she runs away with the other maids. They run into the woods, but one of the maids, Emily, is wounded and unable to walk on her own. As the members catch up with them and block their path, Brenner kills 2 more cartel members. She escapes with Emily and they set up camp in the woods that night. Emily is amazed by Brenner's skills and strength and asks if she could teach her a few things. Brenner also learns that Emily is pregnant with Butch's baby. Emily tells Brenner that the gang won't stop hunting until they find her, but Brenner assures her she is safe with her. Brenner also learns that the cartel traffics women as maids. Brenner is disturbed to hear the extent of the cartel's evil deeds and swears she will stop them. The next morning, Emily is taken hostage by the cartel and Brenner saves her. Sheriff Hobbs tries to help the women, but he is shot in the leg and unable to walk. Brenner wants to leave him behind, but Emily insists they bring him along, as the cartel would kill him if left behind. She hesitantly agrees, and they help the sheriff to his feet. Meanwhile, Mama is furious and sends reinforcements to capture Brenner and kill her. The reinforcements find the dead cartel members and use them to track the fleeing group. Brenner and Emily leave the sheriff behind as he can't walk any longer. However, Emily's wound leaves a blood trail. Mama's reinforcements bring along hunting dogs who pick up Emily's scent and track her down. But Brenner and Emily cross a deep river, which washes off Emily's blood, covering their tracks so the dogs can't find them. When they arrive at the road, a lady offers to help, but we soon discover that the woman works for Mama and takes them back to the cartel. Mama is happy to see them alive still and orders them to be tortured. Mama sentences Emily to death for trying to escape, but Brenner tells her Emily is pregnant and didn't want to leave, but she forced her to escape into the woods. Mama is happy to hear Emily is carrying her grandchild and spares her life. Mama orders Brenner to be locked up for trespassing on her land and killing her boys, and as Brenner's dragged away, she says she will kill Mama too. The men lock Brenner up and take turns watching over her. Later, Mama tells Emily she doesn't believe the story she told and plans to kill her after the baby is born. In lockup, Brenner has nightmares about her time as a ranger. One of the cartel members tries to give her water and treat her wounds, but he is chased away by another cartel member, Vince. Emily wants to know if Brenner is okay, so she brings some food for Vince, who tries to rape her. While Brenner distracts him, Emily stabs him multiple times. Emily is terrified from killing a man and freezes on the spot. Brenner snaps her back to reality and tells her to cut her loose. Brenner injects herself with morphine and tells Emily to hide so she can clean house. Brenner begins killing cartel members in the house one by one, gruesomely murdering every last one. When Mama returns, she is horrified. Brenner is caught off guard by a surviving member, but as he stalls, Brenner shoots him in the face. Before she can recover, another member attacks, but she kills him too. As Brenner searches the house for any survivors, Mama appears with a knife to Emily's throat and asks Brenner to surrender. When Brenner refuses, Mama kills Emily and runs off. Brenner then leaves, promising to come back for Mama. It is 3 months later, and we learn that Sheriff Hobbs is still alive. He receives a call from Brenner, who tells him she is back in town and needs his help. Sheriff Hobbs is happy to hear that she is still alive and agrees to help. Later, as Mama receives a threatening text from Brenner, she is shot in the head. Now that Brenner has finally avenged her husband, she packs her stuff and leaves. That was all from the video. Subscribe for more content like this and leave a like to help the channel out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Take care.